Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Nervasi, the English teacher here at the high school, taking on AP English Literature yet again. Um, so I just wanted to talk to you tonight about the class and about the exam that we're all going to be prepping for this year. So here's why we're here, the exam. It's a pretty daunting task when you see it on paper like this. Part one, 1 hour long, 55 questions with a selection of poetry and prose to analyze. And then we have the essays, 2 hours, 40 minutes each. One on a poem, one on a prose passage from a short story or a novel, and then open response where they're given a thematic question and they get to choose a book to use to answer that thematic question. So they have a little bit of an option there. And of course, we're going to be preparing for this exam in all its details all year long. So the curriculum that I follow is basically following the College Board's curriculum outline that they detail on the AP Classroom page. It's broken down to 9 units of 3 rotations of each of these things here. So a short fiction section, a poetry unit, and a longer fiction unit. I vary it a little bit, but generally I cycle through all 3 of those so that way I make sure I'm always touching on the skills they need for all parts of the exam instead of just focusing on one skill early in the year and then not returning to it until we review at the end. Throughout the entirety of the curriculum, we'll be doing multiple choice practice along with the 3 types of essays required. And we'll be touching on mock exams as well pretty often. I do teach to the test, and that might be a bad phrase to say in education, but this test is absolutely worth doing that for. Right? It stresses critical reading, analysis, argumentation, writing. And if you can't get much better than that in an AP class or in an English class. So the readings we do, we already covered Ethan Frome. It's very short, simple work done over the summer, but it very much works for the final essay question that they're asked on the exam. It has minimal characters, easy to analyze, but it's very well respected in the AP community. We do a bunch of short stories throughout the year. We just covered 2 currently, and we're moving on to a 3rd one pretty soon, and a lot of poems. That's one thing we don't do enough of in Rutherford High School. So I'm glad to take on the task of exposing them to as much poetry as possible their senior year. We'll move on to 1984, a pretty important work, obviously. And after that, we'll go on to probably one of the toughest works they'll read in high school, Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. But we do that through the lens of Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, because he certainly has an opinion of Joseph Conrad's writing of The Heart of Darkness. So we'll contrast those 2 works in terms of how they present Africa. The grading system is pretty straightforward. We put a lot of emphasis on writing assignments. And within tests and projects, there are a lot of mock exams in that. I do curve the mock exams to match the expectations of the AP exam, but also the grading system of the AP exam. You could pretty much get a 60% correct on the multiple choice in the AP exam and still pass that exam. And it's a pretty tough test. So I make sure I curve everything to kind of match that AP curve, if you will. We have a lot of test prep resources. Albert is something that we introduced a couple years ago. It has a bunch of multiple choice practice for them. AP Classroom is something new that the College Board has done to sort of keep up with everyone else who's doing test prep online. And it's an excellent resource, so we'll be using that as well. Test prep books, if we needed. And I'm actually going to be teaching them how to grade essays as well. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity this summer to be an AP reader. So I actually got to grade and score last year's exam. So I have a lot of insight into how to grade these papers, but also what exactly they're looking for when they grade these papers. So I'm hoping to pass that on to my students to help them better prepare and better write essays for the AP exam. And we do a lot of multiple choice question analysis as well, not just taking them, but analyzing why an answer is right, why an answer is wrong. As far as the AP grading system goes, if you're familiar, perhaps you're familiar with this already, but basically it's a 5-point scale. Most colleges, or many colleges, accept 3 or higher, but more and more are only accepting 4 and 5. So I'm trying to tell my students, don't think of a 3 as passing. 4 and a 5, that's what you're aiming for. And of course, you can earn some college credit for this, which saves you money, but also saves you time. And as far as a brag sheet goes, and this is very much the English department at Rutherford High School that I'm talking about here. But we've done pretty well. 90% or higher have passed 3 or higher, but historically we've gotten 50% of the, or we've gotten a 4 or a 5, which 50% might not sound good, but you compare that to the global average of only 24%. We're doing pretty well. Last year, we had our best year, if I'm honest. 66% got a 4 or a 5, and 50% overall got a 5. So that was a really good year. So that's my spiel. If you have any questions, please just reach out. It's going to be a tough year, but we're adapting to it pretty well already. And I've confidence that the class is going to rise to the occasion here and do really well on this year's exam. So again, if you have any questions, please reach out and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right. Thank you, everybody.